Hello, my name is Mark Hadmaker. Welcome to our tape on extreme boxing. What we've done here is we're taking boxing techniques from the pre-ruled period, which is pre-Marquis of Queensberry rules, and when they still had lots of fun things still in the game. You got the elbows, the headbutts. They were actually still using cross buttocks throws. Get some foot stomps involved, pivot punches. We'll explain what those are later, and bring up the sophistication of today's modern-day training techniques, and really marry these two, the old and the new, together, and create a kind of a whole new system, which I think are going to serve you pretty well. Now, our perspective, we're putting these martial arts together, is entirely a Western martial arts perspective. We're looking at Western boxing, Western wrestling with the hooks, the submissions back in, and we filter all this through Western empiricism, which means we take things into the laboratory, the dojo, the gym, the ring, and we actually try every drill out. We try out every portion of the arsenal, the defensive arsenal. We make sure all these things work. Now, what we're going to do with this tape, we're going to start you out with all the basics, from stance, moving you through footwork, to movement, your entire offensive arsenal, your defensive arsenal, and then we're going to show you how to put some combinations together. We're going to show you how to put counterpunch flow chains together, talk about sparring, and a few other drills from there. Now, we're not going to be exhaustive on some of these later portions. We're going to show you how to build chains on your own. Now, we will be exhaustive when we're looking at how to put the first portions together, all your building blocks, your foundations, the stances, and the arsenal, to make sure that you've got the best form you've got. And then from there, we're just leaving it up to your creativity to take these ingredients we've given you and create your own recipes from there. And really, the only limit will be your own creativity and how much time you're willing to put into this. Now, to keep in mind, you can't just watch the tape once and go, oh, I got the whole thing down. There's a lot of information going to be included in here, and your job is to watch it, try every single aspect, every technique, drill it and drill it hard. Make sure it becomes you're going to carve some new neural nets, some new groove it into your musculature. Make sure you can respond with everything in the tape, and then constantly be refining and recreating your own combinations and techniques and drills all the way through. And I think once you've seen this, you get the idea of how we build them up. You're going to be able to build these things on your own. So let's get training. Good luck. When we're talking about putting together our boxing system, the first thing we need to address, of course, is going to be your stance. When we're talking about stance, I'm going to have my demo standing in a static position, even though we know everything we're doing in actual fight is going to be fluid and dynamic. We got to start out the static position to make sure we're putting everything together in the proper order. One of the things we have to remember when we're doing this boxing, the extreme form, is we're just not boxers only worried about the punches coming in, and we're also worried about the kicks, the elbows, the headbutts, and of course the shoots. So our stance is going to be a little bit wider than usual because we have to address the concerns of the boxer and the wrestler. We're going to kind of split the distance a little bit, where boxer's going to be a little bit up on the toes, a little bit of a narrow base. And the first thing we have to look at, if we can imagine standing on the face of the clock. You just stand to the side just for a moment, Corey, for me. If we're standing on the face of the clock, if you have a right lead forward, your lead foot is going to be at 12 noon, and your left foot's going to be back on 8 o'clock. Now, if you have a left lead stance, just reverse that. You're going to be left foot, noon, and your right foot is going to be back at 4 o'clock. Now, I'm a right lead forward, so I'm going to train from my comfortable side. So I've got my right foot, my lead foot at noon, and my rear foot is over at 8 o'clock. Now, boxing stance, this is about a shoulder width apart, but I'm not just worried about boxing. I'm worried about the shoot coming in, so I'm going to have to be a little bit wider on this clock face. So I'm just spreading out my 8 o'clock foot a little bit wider. Most of the weight is going to be on the balls of my feet, but I am not up on my toes. I can still feel my heels on the feet, but I still feel most of the weight ready to shift coming through the balls of the feet the entire time. My knees will stay slightly bent throughout the entire course of my movement. Even during this static stance, I'm standing here. I'm never going to come upright the entire way. As soon as my hips come up, this is the time for someone to shoot in and take me down. We've got to make this important all the way through. Even though we're working on boxing techniques, we are still concerned with the shoot coming in the entire time. You want to use your boxing to set up the shoots and the takedowns just so someone else can bring you down at the same time. So we get wide base, bend the knees, weight is being felt on the toes, the heels are not up. We're not bouncing around. It's a little bit of wasted energy, and also a good wrestler is going to notice whenever your hips rise up, this is a good time to shoot in on you. Also, taking a look at this, if I'm facing directly in on my opponent, what I'm going to do is I want my chest facing him, but I'm going to slightly have my feet turned off to my inside, meaning towards the inside of my chest. The reason I'm doing this, for example, if our kicks are coming in, we get some round kicks coming in, we get some thigh kicks coming in, rear leg kick going in. If I've got the side of my thigh directly in, anyone's taken this shot before knows what that feels like. If I get my feet slightly to the inside when the kick comes in, it gives me a little bit of time to feed them into the hamstring if need be. I know some people are going to tell you they're going to be able to point the knee into it. That's a great technique as well. Pretty common in some Filipino martial arts. Again, what we're looking at, since there's not a lot of kicking in the system that we're doing here, when this kick is coming in, we're looking to even lower the base even more and shoot in behind the kick. So when he does throw that kick, I'm already low on this. I can drop my base and shoot in behind. Give me the kick. So by giving him the hamstring, I'm protecting the outside of the quad, which is pretty much where most of the pain's going to come in anyway. So I'm back on my 12 and 8. I'm feeling the weight on the balls of the feet. Knees are slightly bent. My feet are turned slightly to the inside, pointing towards my chest. Now my hand position here, my elbows are resting on my ribs. This naturally has to protect my rib the entire way. If we're doing standard boxing, I give you a profile, they're able to take their elbows out from the ribs to some degree. But they're not worried about the kick being shot up underneath the ribs. We are. So we got to rest the elbows on the ribs, let alone the 5 to 8 to 10 rounds anyway. That's where your hands are going to drop anyway. Now, once our hands are here, our hands form what is called the box position. As far as I'm concerned, this is the real reason it's called boxing. I'm forming a box with my arms. My forearms are parallel. Add another angle up top. Here's the top of the box. Here's the bottom of the box here. Keep my forearms parallel, elbows resting on ribs the entire way. I keep my shoulders hunched up, particularly my lead shoulders. If I'm talking on free hands on the phone, I've stuck the phone here, got the shoulder up the entire way, just trying to look like Quasimodo at this point. And I bring my fist in and I touch them on my cheeks. I always want to feel these on my cheeks the entire way. This is my little mnemonic to remind me to keep my face covered up the entire way. As soon as you drop this shoulder and travel your hands out from your face, this is when you're going to get blasted. Someone's going to be able to bring you down. We've got to protect this jawline at all times. So from the bottom to the top, weight is on the balls of the feet. We got our lead foot at 12 and 8, or at 12 and 4. And we've got our knees are slightly bent. Coming up the rest of the body, we know that we're turning slightly to the inside. Our forearms are parallel. Our elbows are resting onto our ribs, and we are touching our cheeks with our fist the entire time. Our chin is down, tucked, and we've got our shoulder up the entire way. Now this is going to be your basic position, our basic reference position. We're going to bring all these other techniques out from. So this is your stance. We're going to start talking about how to move it dynamically. But first and foremost, get a mirror, check yourself out in it, and make sure that you've got everything we just discussed. Check back the videotape if you need to. Always use the mirror as your feedback. Once you've got your stance down, it's time to look at the movement. Again, stance is your static positioning, but the fight doesn't really happen that way. Nobody just stands here like this the entire fight and throws punches from one position. You've got to move the entire time. So if we go back to our 12 and 8 or 12 and 4 position, depending on whatever lead you have forward, a few concepts to keep in mind. One, always keep your feet a shoulder width apart, even whenever you're moving the entire time. Resist the urge to bring your feet together at any time. Anytime you have this narrow base, this is the time that, one, if you're hit high, with a good shot, it's going to rock you a little bit more. You don't have your legs to act as shock absorbers. And also, if you're shot in at this particular time when your feet are together, you will go down. So, same thing, you don't keep your feet close together. You got to keep a shoulder width apart the entire time that you're moving. Also, you will not cross your feet at any time during your motions. This, bad move right here. Very big no-no right here. The people will shoot in and bring you down immediately. So when we are moving, what do? We're going to step and drag in all positions. I'm going to try and keep my feet in contact with the mat, the surface, the pavement at any and all times. And also, as a general rule, whatever direction I want to go to, the foot that is closest to that direction will move first. For example, if I'm going to move forward, my lead foot, my 12 o'clock foot, will step forward. I will drag the rear foot following that. When I move backward, rear foot will move in that direction, drag the lead foot. When I move off to my right foot, move in that direction and drag, left, and drag. No rocket science here again. Step, drag, step, drag, step, drag, step, drag. If I want to hit this angle, step, drag, back angle, step, drag. Not a lot to it really, just keeping the feet at least a shoulder width apart. As soon as I come to a static position, I'm trying to keep my 12 and 8 o'clock base the entire time. There's no bouncing going on, like you can't get away with in some boxing. Again, they're only worried about the punches coming in. We fear, we respect the shoot at any and all times, so I've got to stay low. Can't get into anything like this. I've got no hopping. I'm not moving. If I want to go forward, I don't move my rear foot first. it's always the lead foot, the foot closest to the direction I want to go, make the movement. A great drill for this is one, get in front of the mirror and just work all your motion, solo, by yourself. I'll show you how to do a pivot here in just a moment, solo. I'm going to bring in my partner and show you a mirror drill. We're using your partner as the mirror, and that way he can give you a little bit of live feedback, get used to moving off of the live opponent. Now a pivot is nothing more than what it sounds like. You're using your lead foot as a hinge, and you're pivoting back and forth. So for example, if I want to pivot to my inside, which means towards my chest, my weight will be in the balls of my feet on the lead foot, my rear foot will step around. This is a pivot. If I want to pivot to the outside, moving off to my back, the lead foot again is anchored, the balls of the feet on the mat, pivot to the outside. Simple enough, pivot inside, pivot outside. The lead foot is always the hinge. There's your pivot, there's your pivot. Let me bring in Corey for just a moment, show this mirror drill we're discussing here. So for example, I will give him the leads. If I step forward, step drag forward, he will step drag to the back. If I step back, he step drags forward. I go right, he's going to go left, creating a circle. I go left, he goes left. See, I'm just following my motion. Retreat and back, here and here. And you get more and more dynamic with this as the motions get down. And you can have your partner watch your feet the entire time and let you know if you're making any mistakes, like I just did here, bringing my feet together. Eventually, when you get higher in the drills, you can exploit this. If he does see me bring my feet together, he's allowed to shoot in on me at that particular time and take his shoot in on me if he needs to. Now, to put the pivot in, what I will do is I will feed him some slow-mo punches. For example, if we get him bringing in just a moment, if I want him to pivot to his inside, towards his chest, I feed a punch and move past him. Let him pivot to this inside. The feed with his hand, he will pivot outside. Now we'll put this in with the entire little bit of floor work mirror drill we just did. So step, 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 step. Bring it in for the pivots. Pivot, pivot, drag, step, drag, step, drag, step, drag, pivot, 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 drag. So you pretty much get the idea there. Just keep your movement going the entire time, just isolating the footwork at this time, and notice every time we come back to one static position, examine your posture. Weights on the ball of the feet, knees bent, everything we already discussed as far as the stance goes. Get your movement in, stop occasionally, examine the stance, work this again and again and again, and then it'll be time to put in your upper body movement, and then put together all your arsenals, and then go through making the combinations, start banging at each other. That's where all the fun comes in. Okay, you've got your stance, you've got your footwork, it's time to look at the upper body movement, okay? A few things to keep in mind. Your body has to always be in motion because it makes it harder for target acquisition. It's like, just trying to say, it's hard to hit a moving target. So when here, there are a few rules as far as the movement goes. One is whenever I'm moving, I only have to take my upper body one head length. So I don't need to be doing anything wild and menacing like this, like Joe Frazier in the early 70s. So one head length is enough. And the other thing I need to do is take my hands with me as well. There's a tendency for people to think they're doing movement, but they're just moving their head the entire way, but they're leaving their hands behind, which means they're opening up their jawline the entire way. You keep those ideas in mind, you pretty much got it. There's two different types of movement you can use. You've got your long rhythm and you've got your short rhythm. Your long rhythm is nothing more than usually whenever you're in the outside range and you're usually just bobbing your head back and forth. It's usually more of a bouncing off the legs. And profile is going to give you something more along these lines. We have to assume that I'm in the outside range, shooting some long range shots, and I'm keeping my head going back and forth. Hands are going with me. It's one head length the entire way. Short rhythm assumes that I'm coming on the inside. I'm doing some infighting, and this is the point where I'm going to start taking my head from side to side. If I start going long rhythm on the inside range, I'm usually leaning myself right into an uppercut, so side to side movement is enough. So usually I get a little bit more compact, bend those knees, side to side. Now the best way to learn the long and the short rhythm, get yourself in front of a mirror, back and forth, throw some of your shadow boxing combinations, and just watch yourself and make sure that you've got some rhythm going the entire way. Long rhythm, back, just keep one head length the entire way. That'll set you up with your long and short rhythm. Now it's time for the fun stuff. We looked at the footwork, the stances, a little bit of the movement. Now it's time to start actually hitting some things. Let's look at all the striking tools involved in the extreme boxing system. Of course, there's the 5 punches commonly used in boxing now, but there's a few things that we're reinstating that were used back when Jack Broughton was doing some bare knuckles boxing in the early 1800s. Some pivot punches, the elbows, the headbutts, and some of the foot stomps are back in. You could also do a cross buttocks throw, which is pretty much more along the lines with the wrestling. We mainly keep this with the striking tools right now. Now, if you're actually going to be striking in the street, of course, you can make a fist if you so choose. I would recommend striking with the heel of the hand. Usually whenever you're training with a partner, it's best to put on the gloves. You will be making a fist, and let's go ahead and learn how to roll a fist correctly. Whenever you're rolling a fist, you're going to roll from the little finger up the palm. So little finger, ring finger, middle finger, index, all the way in. This allows me to compact this fist a little bit more tightly all the way through. Now we're going to look at the striking surface of the fist. Now commonly, I've heard this for years and years, that in most martial arts circles, they're wanting to strike with the index and the middle finger knuckle. I'm telling you, this lines up better with the bones of the forearm, and it gives you a little bit more power with reinforcement. I personally happen to think it's bullshit. Now, you're going to find if you actually start striking things, hitting a heavy bag along this waist, if you're really thinking about just striking with these knuckles, you start pronating your wrist, start tearing the tendons up through here and come out with some wrist problems. What we're going to do instead is strike with the back 3 knuckles. It's just not my idea. Jack Dempsey, a lot of the old timers felt the same way about this. Hit with the back 3 knuckles, also with the flat of the fingers as well. It's just not trying to hit with this small cutting surface area. It's this whole entire compacted rock that you've created with your fist by rolling from the small finger in. That's why we were so big on rolling from the outside in to compact this one particular area. Let's go ahead and start looking at the punches now, because we're going to throw these things. One thing to keep in mind when throwing all the strikes, you want these things to follow whatever path they follow out, you want them to retract along the same path the entire way. If you don't do this, you're going to be opening yourself up to receive a shot yourself, open up to a counter punch, or just the chaos, someone flailing away, they're going to catch you somewhere. So for example, if I throw a punch straight out from the jaw, it's got to retract straight into the jaw. Anything that would swing to the inside, sometimes you'll see people throwing punches along this style right here. We call this swimming it. No good. I'm throwing my hand across center line. I'm opening up my jaw the entire way. So this is a horizontal swim. You can also swim down on the vertical axis as well. So horizontal and the vertical kind of starts looking like pawing. What we're trying to do is everything's got to come right back the same path that you threw this punch. Keep you some maximum coverage. Also, when you're throwing punches, you're going to want to expel air at the same time. You're going to hear a little bit of when you're throwing your punches. Now you can do this through your mouth, or you can breathe through your nose. I would prefer that my suggestion would be to breathe through the nose, because when you're breathing through the mouth, you usually have your jaw opened a little bit, and whenever you've got that, if you do get caught in the jaw, easy to get this broken. So you're going to breathe through the nose. That's why lots of times you're going to see boxers when they're fighting, you're going to see the mucus flowing. Well, they're keeping the jaw clenched so they don't break the jaw, but it's better to have a little bit of something to wipe off than picking your teeth up or having your jaw wired shut. Also, you're expelling air at the same time, because as soon as you open yourself up to throw a punch, I just use the word that you opened yourself up to throw the punch. If I throw this jab out here, I've opened up this entire body line. Whenever I receive some impact at the same time, if I'm already expelling air, a little bit less internal pressure allows me to receive this impact a little bit better. I'm not happy about it by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll be able to survive this thing. Let's look at the jab, which is going to be your bread and butter punch. You've got to have a jab no matter what system you're in. It is still the bread and butter of boxing. If you're going to be doing mixed martial arts, you're going to have it. If you're just going to do shooting only, you know you can't shoot and take someone unless you can touch them. And the best way to find out if you can touch them is, can you reach them with the jab? If you can tap them with the jab, it's time to shoot. You can't touch them, you can't shoot with them. Same thing in boxing. If you can't touch them with the jab, there's no other punch that's going to reach them. So you're going to make sure you got this jab down. Now, to throw the jab straight on angle, I'm going to make sure, just like in boxing as in wrestling, I've got to get my hips behind the movement. So I'm at 12 and 8. Whenever I throw the punch, it's coming directly off my cheekbone. I'm extending the punch. I take my shoulder with the motion, and my hip comes in with the motion at the same time. This gives me the power in the shot. On the profile, straight in, shoulder and hip the entire way. Now, this is where my power is coming from. If I just punch only from the shoulder, this is called an arm punch. Not going to be any power in this. I'm going to maybe, we call this a show jab. Whenever you see this kind of thing, I'm able to get them to blink their eyes, maybe get a flinch response out of them, but it really is not going to have any load power behind it. By getting my hips behind this punch, then it means something. So there's a big weight transfer where my feet are pretty much at 50-50 right now. As soon as I throw the punch, it's going to probably end up being 70-80% of the weight will sit on this lead foot as I shift my hips over the front of it. Common error when you first learn this, is whenever you're throwing the punch, you'll get your hips into it, but you'll see people actually lean their upper body out and away from it. Okay, I've just diminished my returns on this. I got my hip forward, I went back to 50%. I may even have 70% at this point on my back foot. No good, time to shoot in on me, and I've thrown a jab for no particular reason at that time. So, to throw the jab, straight out from the jaw, I take my hips into it, and I take my shoulder into it. Again, you notice by throwing the shoulder into it, it's going to give me at least an additional 6 to 8 inches into this punch. So, straight out, straight back. Out, back. Notice whenever I throw it, how I'm bringing my shoulder up to my jaw at the same time. I don't throw this with a level shoulder. Notice this distance between my shoulder and my jaw. Cross is going to come over the top and catch me. By keeping my shoulder up and my chin down the entire time, I'm protected the entire way. So to throw the punch, a few in real time. Notice using the short rhythm at this time. Profile. Okay, you have to work that jab a lot. You're going to need it. Now, the opposite number on the jab is going to be the cross. The punch thrown off your rear hand, some people call it a reverse punch, just a cross to us. Whenever you throw this punch, again, it's going to work from the feet up. I'm going to move off, I'm on my 12 and 8. I'm going to turn my feet to face both on the 12 o'clock. So I'm going noon with my feet. Whenever I throw this punch, I'm going to be raising my rear heel, can't even say it now, rear heel off the mat. The altitude, guys. Whenever I turn, bring that heel up. I don't wing it to the outside like I'm throwing a golf swing. Okay, this really gives me no stability. I'm pushing straight through the entire way. So 12 and 8, turn to the 12, and push. Whenever I push, I'll also be advancing my rear hip through the punch. So turn, push, hip comes through, then I'm able to put my shoulder behind the punch as well. So I turn, push, retract, turn, push, retract. Straight on. Notice I'm trying to avoid throwing my heel to the outside. Straight on. A few in real time. Profile. Bringing the shoulder up to protect your jaw the entire way. Take a look at the lead hook now. Go ahead and tell you there's only one hook. You have a lead hook. You don't have a rear hook because this is coming from so far back. By the time I open up this rear angle here, a straight-in shot's going to beat this thing. So forget this. A rear hook is just like a haymaker. You don't really need it in your arsenal. To throw the lead hook, just like on the pivots we talked about earlier in the footwork, where I use the lead foot to walk around, I'm using the rear foot as a hinge this time. And if I drop my hands out of the equation for the moment, off my rear foot, my upper body is a door. Me slamming this door using the rear foot as the hinge. As such. Whenever I start adding in the hand motion with it, you notice this allows me to take my hips to be behind the punch the entire way. This is not a hook where I just throw my arms the entire way. This is going to be all pec and front deltoid. Okay? Don't have the musculature for this. But putting the whole body into it gives me really something to bang with. The other thing I'll do with it is I'll keep an extreme bend on my elbow. I'm going to keep a 90-degree angle on my arm. It's one fused piece of bone. I'm not going to get so far with it and then start extending my arm through it. Whenever I throw this punch, if I'm throwing this in an infighting situation, it's a close range, I'll be leaving my fist horizontal all the way through. If I'm throwing this, a long-range hook, I'll Felix Trinidad, open my palm facing to the inside. Long-range hook. Close range, long. Close, long. Close, long. And I was using the door slamming all the way through. A few in real time. Long. Immediate recovery. Profile. Short. Long. Long. There. Now let's look at the uppercuts, which are only used for infighting. We've got to be all the way inside for these to work. Never going to lead with an uppercut. An uppercut off the lead hand, rear hand, pretty much they're going to work the same way as far as the dynamics go and the setups go. What I'm going to do, this is not an uppercut. Dropping my hand and opening up my entire body to throw the shot. What I'm going to be doing first is if I'm throwing with my lead hand, I'm going to dip my legs on that side and profile. Dip, dip, and I'm going to think about scooping my lead hip upwards. So dip, scoop upwards. dip, scoop upwards. Whenever I dip, then I can bring this fist out about 6 to 8 inches from my chin, and then stand up through the shot. Notice whenever I stand up, I don't continue on a rise with it. I never let my fist travel beyond this upward plane of my shoulders. Here. Up, dip, dip, and up. Same thing if I throw it off the rear side. I turn, just like we did in the cross. My 12 and 8 turns into the 12. Turn the hip forward, dip on this side, travel the fist out about 6 to 8 inches from the shoulder. Stand up through it. Don't let it extend past the shoulder plane. Turn, up. Lead, rear. Lead, rear. Lead, rear. Straight on, lead. Real time. Rear. Okay, 5 basic punches of boxing. Jab, cross, lead hook, lead uppercut, rear uppercut. Once you've got your punch arsenal down, it's time to look at the other tools we can play with in the game, the ones that used to be in the game before the rules came in. You've got elbows, the pivot punches, you've got foot stomps, and you've got your headbutts. Let's go ahead and take a look at how the elbows are done. Let me pull Corey in here for just a few moments. Now, Muay Thai has some wonderful ways to throw the elbows, some great technique involved with it. These are fantastic. But as far as the way we're going to be setting it up, the old style boxing, they're a little bit more short and choppy because they're still trying to get back to the fist work a good deal. Where in Thai, you're going to have a lot of setup, long sweeping elbows. In the boxing, we're assuming that we're in Thai, assume stance. We're doing some tight end fighting. The elbows are going to come across more the lines of a short hook. So instead of actually throwing my hook where he actually would be caught with this hook, I'm going to throw it short and just let this little short choppiness catch him right in here. I don't have to do a whole setup along this lines as in Thai. Just short, standard elbow right in here. The whole time we could have still been throwing our body shots and still allowing these elbows to bang in and hit their target. Nothing more to it if you're just looking straight on with it. Just bringing it straight in. I'm not bringing up the hands in front of the forehead right now. This will work if you already got this down from previous Thai training. No quibble with that whatsoever. But it's not as necessary. This is just a little bit of an insert shot along with our punching. Same thing will work with the up elbows, little short choppy shots. We're on the inside, bam, just as the uppercut would travel up the center, let the elbow travel up the center as well. You can actually work a little bit of a sparring range with it, a controlled drill by throwing elbows up the center, and of course the horizontal angles the entire time. In addition to the elbows, there is also forearm strikes, which were called pivot punches in the old days. These pivot punches are nothing more than striking with the outer blade of the forearm or the inner blade of the forearm. The pivot punches usually was used whenever you missed with a hook. If I had a hook that came long and looping, if I was in a short range, the elbow still would have caught him. So if I'm throwing this hook, the hook catches him, great. If he's leaning in on the hook and I miss the hook, elbow catches him. If he zones out from the hook and I miss with it, on my retraction of the hook, I'm going to allow my arm to open up and catch him with the entire forearm. It's not going to be a hammer fist at all. We're catching him with the cutting bone straight in and back across the neck. Usually the target is soft tissue in the neck. Hitting the bone is fine, but you want the soft tissue. So again, if he's in close with me, I miss the hook, he's hitting the choppy elbow. If I miss the hook and he's out and away, I'm snapping back. On this snap back, my retraction, I've got my hook on this side, I'm bringing my hips back, and I'm letting my shoulder come back, and I'm just opening up the arm. Big step for just one moment, a big sweeping out motion. It is a total commitment motion, and there is an opening on it. You're going to feel very open on this one at first, because if I've missed with this hook and he's zoned back, I've opened up this entire line, and the only thing I've got available is I've got to give him this desperation swing to bring myself back into line. So again, I throw a hook, he zones out, I'm back in with the pivot punch. Wish I could tell you why it was called the pivot punch. Don't know, that's just how it's always been referred to. Now the inside pivot, usually coming from the inside the clinch. We talked about whenever the pivot's going to be the forearm shot. Last time there's still the clenching that comes up in boxing, not as much as the over and unders you're going to find in wrestling. But sometimes when we're in this close with a shot, it'd be nothing more than me as if I'm throwing a jab directly behind. Let me turn you this way. A jab directly behind his neck. Whenever I throw this jab, I'm going to turn my thumb to the inside and allow him to catch the soft tissue of the neck again with the inner forearm. So I'm going to, bam, catch him in here. Doesn't look like much of a shot. But whenever you're throwing it full force, it will bang pretty good. I know something very similar in some Filipino martial arts is catch them all with the crook of the arm or with the bicep as well. But sometimes what can happen with this, fight goes on for a while, I find that catching the chin and the bicep has a tendency to frog that muscle up for me. So I find hitting with the forearm is a little bit of a better strike. But again, we're in close fighting. I throw the jab back and behind the neck. And usually what's done after this anyway is we're going to throw it directly into the headbutts or directly into more elbows or into the foot stomps. We're going to start talking how to put the proper technique on some of these headbutts anyway. The headbutt, a free headbutt, let me circle you back around in just a moment. A free headbutt just means I have no cohesion. I'm not touching my opponent at the time. We're just banging away. And as soon as I see an opening right in here, I'm just going to use from the hairline up to launch in with the headbutt. Usually they're best being sprung from the legs. I'm not using my neck. There's no neck flexion on this movement at all. I'm dropping my knees and driving in with the top of the head. None of these are, all these punches, everything we're showing in the arsenal are meant to be used in concert. It's all part of a combination. We're never going to be throwing one shot, pull back and say, hey, did I win with this thing? Be throwing punches. You got your pivot shots, your elbows, your headbutts are coming in the entire time. Everything's being pulled together. Not a lot of technique on that free headbutt, as I said, beyond dipping at the knees and then rising back up into it. A clenched headbutt is nothing more than what it sounds. We're working from a clenched position, hanging on tight, and using the side or the top of the head to occasionally rake back and putting in your headbutts. Again, nothing major. They're pretty prehistoric when you get down to it. Just be aware that this is available. You're not allowed to use it in boxing anymore, but you are allowed to throw it in this particular system. Now, what does have some technique on it will be what we call the false clenched headbutt, which is nothing more when we're fighting, we're throwing this. If I am able to come in with the clinch, we're talking about if I get a waistband clinch. Let me turn. I'm able to grip waistband of his boxing trunks here, or his NHB shorts, or his gi belt, or his jeans. It doesn't matter. I'm able to grip right in here. Because no, lots of times when we're shooting for a high clinch or a body lock, we're looking to shoot around the body anyway. Be able to roll them up and bring them down. This false clinch position just allows me to have one hand in position. I will use my free hand to actually catch him on the shoulder. So what I'll be doing is pulling his waistband and pulling his hip tight to my hip. It's a pulling motion. Round, pulling into my hip. My free hand will lever onto his shoulder. So I get this motion going here. Now, by dipping at the knees at the same time and giving him my pulling motion on this false clinch and standing up through, he's going to catch the headbutt directly underneath the chin. So I'm here, here, and here. So you'll see how much I can manipulate and open him up. Even if he's trying to keep closed position on me in here, there's my open up. So whenever I dip at the knees and stand back up through it, there's my shot right up the center. So to drill those together, because it's tough, very tough to drill the elbows in with the punches without really hurting each other, you would have your boxing gloves on, throw your punches, and then with your pivot shots, again, very hard to take, but whenever you're throwing around, we can be throwing back and forth, getting used to throwing some of these shots, faking the clinches, the false headbutts all the way through. Once you have the clinch as well, we talked about in pre-ruled boxing, you were allowed to throw the foot stomps in. Well, not technically allowed, but you did it. There was no foul called on it, which is nothing more than using your heel, striking anywhere from the toes, all the way up to where the shin bone is joining directly into the ankle, up and in. Up and in. It doesn't matter which foot you're throwing them off of. Just make sure you keep your feet wide. You're still trying to maintain your 12 and 8 to keep some base to it. So we'll kind of maintain a clinch, shuffle around a bit, throwing some foot stomps back and forth. And we just mimic those by striking next to the foot on the mat. And you can still mimic some of your body shots coming in, headbutts, and you're going to clinch firing away the entire time. Now, one other thing that was allowed in pre-ruled boxing, because they would fight from a clinch here, which looks a lot different than the standard boxing clinch, which is usually a high tie-up, they were allowed to throw. Okay, now this is not really within the confines of what we're trying to cover today, because takedowns, that's an art unto itself. But we have to be aware, that's one reason why we have our hips positioned away, because to get a good takedown of someone, I have to be in control of his hips. If I can get his hips into me, or if I can lower my base underneath him, I am going to take him down. And since we're aware of that for the shooting, the sake of someone shooting in on us, even though we're boxing, we're going to keep our hips out and respect the fact that someone can shoot in on us. So every time we are boxing, and as soon as we hit a clinch, you will see us get our hips out and away. If one of us does not get our hips out in the way, we will go ahead and take the takedown as we see fit. Anyway, that is the arsenal in a nutshell. You got your punches, your pivots, your headbutts, your elbows, and your foot stomps. We've talked about how to hit. Now let's talk about how not to get hit. Where's the fun of hitting someone if you're getting hit back at the same time? We're going to run through the defenses for all the arsenal we just set up for you, all the punches, the pivot shots, the elbows, and everything. Starting with the jab, we've got several ways to defend against the jab. I'm going to give you 8. I think all 8 are very, very good, and I wouldn't recommend you go, I'm going to pick 1 or 2, and these are the ones I like. I'd recommend that you become familiar with all 8, run them in multiple drills, and make sure you get, just like all the defenses we're going to show you, run them all as a drill, make sure you get familiar with them, because your hands will be in different reference positions at different times. The first bread and butter defense against a jab is whenever someone throws a jab, it's just called a jab catch. Whenever he throws his jab, I use my rear hand, not my lead hand. He throws his jab off his lead. My rear hand will open up, travel about 6 to 8 inches in front of my face, and I just receive it in my palm. Just like it says, it's a catch. Shows the punch, there it is. A couple of mistakes with the jab would be me reaching out too far for it. This assumes I have prior knowledge that he's throwing a jab, which I do now because it's a drill, but this will, if you drill this way, you're going to get to where you're always reaching out and trying to paw at a punch, which means I'm leaving my jaw open the entire time. So when the jab comes in, here's my catch. Small travel, and I advance that shoulder towards the punch, allow it to land. We'll trade a few jabs right now. I'll throw. Notice there's a little bit of impact sound there. We're not receiving these lightly. If I just have my hand out here lightly beneath the punch, I'm going to get some little bit of back blow here and end up hitting myself. So when that comes out, that catch is a little bit of a, I'm smacking in on this thing. Make sure it doesn't come back to me. The other way I can treat this jab, the catch was assuming my hands are right in front of this punch as it comes in. Throw it again. My hands are slightly in the outside reference position, which hopefully they're not going to be because I'm going to be staying in proper stance the entire time. I'm going to throw a cuff or a parry against it, still using my rear hand. When he throws the jab, I'm coming against the outside of the glove, and I was hitting in the cuff, hence the name, just cuffing the punch. Whenever I do this, I'm going to avoid my defensive motion becoming a swim. I'm not doing an inside forearm block and sacrificing a lot of space here. Use lots of economy of motion here. Smack it, and then circle my hand right back to position. Smack and circle. There's cuff and circle. So he throws, cuff and circle, like that. Exchange a few. I'll throw. Again, you're hearing some impact there to make sure we're moving this punch out of our way. We can also get rid of these punches by using some upper body motion as well. When he throws the punch, slipping motion. When he throws, I can either take my body to the outside of the punch or the inside. The outside means I'm going to the outside of his body, away from his weapons. This is the safest place to put my slip in. Inside still has me miss this punch. We'll flip it around. You see I am leaning into another weapon here. So if I am slipping the inside, I have to be extra diligent about this shot coming into me. It's not an altogether no-no. It's better to have an inside slip and go ahead and receive this jab. But if you have your druthers, you want to go to the outside on your slipping. And a slip is going to be nothing more, over here please, sir. It's going to be nothing more than you angling your body slightly to an inside or outside angle. And I will do so by, if I'm slipping to my inside, I turn my feet to face inside and then dip at the knees, not just at the waist. If I'm bending over at the waist, if Corey bends over the waist for me, he's going to receive a snap down, go to the mat, or he's going to receive an uppercut, bend at the waist again. There's the shot, or again, there's the shot, or worst of all, there's the shot as well. So he's got to turn, bend at the knees on his slip. So just bend down at the knees. That's the best way to go. He's got his gloves up in front of his face the entire time. Slipping to the outside of my body, again, turn my feet in that direction and bend at the knees. So work on the outside slip whenever he throws the punch. Again, I turn and I dip at the knees. Again, turn, dip at the knees, dip at the knees, dip at the knees. Exchange a few. Here it is. Here. with the inside angle. Whenever I throw, notice you're going to turn, slip inside, inside. Ate one of those, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was fun. Okay, we've also got a pull, which is nothing more, some people call this a rock. When he throws the punch directly at me, what I'm going to do is, my weight's at 50-50, I'm going to let my weight drop to 70% on the rear foot. When the punch comes in, I'm slightly letting this just come out. I don't have to have any hand work at all. I can use a cuff or a catch if I want to feel extra safe, have some extra protection there. But when he throws, a little bit of a lean back. It's just called pull. But immediately, I want to come back. Bad mistake with the pull is to stay back. You can throw this, me staying rocked back here. My weight's off, it's going to keep hitting me. It's going to go low for a shoot. So real slow again. Pull, 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 pull. I'll exchange a few off of this. Pull. Okay. Now we can use the rear hand, our lead hand, to help us out with our defense as well. When he throws the jab, I can use a cross glove parry or a cuff from the opposite hand. I use my lead hand. Let me turn it. Where previously I used this hand to put the cuff in, my lead hand will give the cuff. Same dynamics here, where I'm sweeping in, circling back to my body. I'm not getting any kind of extra blow right here. Again, not an inner forearm block. So again, there's the motion, there's the motion, motion, motion. Circle it back. I'm going to throw, cuff. There you go. Optimally, where I'm catching him, inside the wrist, blowing it out. Moving this out of the way. Natural follow-ups out of something like a cuff, because some people think this is going to bring you out of position. I can put a show jab behind it by cuffing, immediately stepping in with the shot. As an example, cuff, and immediately come in on top of this with my jab. Another technique I can use if my hands are in a low reference position, which if I'm smart they never will be, but if for some reason I've just thrown, perhaps I shot low, I'm in here, and he's throwing his jab on top, and I don't have time to come up with these other motions we just talked about. What I'm going to do is, since I've already been protecting my jaw anyway through good stance, if I throw low, I got this shoulder up, I'm going to put my shoulder in front of the jab. So if my hands are in low position, I just feed them a shoulder. Notice I'm turning with the hips and the feet to put the shoulder in front of it. Just turn on this side for a moment. Again, jab. Let's turn it. Trade a few. Throw. And again, what we're doing here in the drill looks like we're aiming for the shoulder, but we're not. We're going straight down the line. This does him no good in the drill if I'm punching his shoulders, because that's not what someone's doing in the street. Going for the jaw. So he goes for my jaw, shoulder, jaw. Get the idea. Last thing we can do against the jab here is just going to be nothing more than a step back. It's exactly what it sounds like. When he throws the jab, I use my lead foot to propel me backwards. He throws the jab, step and drag back. Jab, step and jab, drag back. Again, here. We've already done the footwork. We're just applying it to a defensive capacity here. Again, boom. And we'll trade those back and forth. I'll throw. There you go, about 8 defenses against the jab. Work all those as an independent drill. Best way to do this would be put at least one 3-minute round on each drill and then start mixing, matching all 8 of those defenses. When defending against a cross, a lot of these things are going to look similar to our defenses against a jab. Difference being is you're not going to see the cross nearly as much because the jab's the bread and butter. People can keep that in your face more often. 2, cross, since it's traveling from the rear side of the body, it's going to have a lot more wind-up, a lot more torque, a lot more power in it. So there's a few things you can't do. And the main difference is I can't catch a cross. So for example, if he's throwing a cross, I just want to open up his glove and put it in front. No matter how hard I smack this thing, his force is still going to give me some blow back and it's going to catch me right in the face. So, first defense against a cross whenever he throws, I'm going to cuff this thing like we've already done. We know short motion, out, smack it, travel right back in a small circle, right back to the chest. He throws the cross, cuff. With my, he's throwing his cross on the same side of the body. I'm working as a mirror right here. So he throws on this side of my body is going to give me the cuffing motion here. So throws, just the cuff, 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 cuff. Let's turn. Cuff, 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 cuff. Let's turn. Trade a few. Going across for you. Okay. Another way to block up this cross as it comes in is to provide a cover or just a block. What I'm going to do here, it's probably best to go ahead and turn this one around. Still with this cross, the path is coming directly in. I didn't have time to get on the outside of it for my cuffing position. So I'm taking my glove up over my ear. And I'm taking my elbow to the inside. I'm not winging it to the outside. Bringing the inside of my body as such. And then I'm going to bend my knees. If you just do this motion without bending your knees, you stop the punch from hitting your face. You're still going to rattle your brains all to hell. Your legs bending at the knees even more so acts a little bit as a shock absorber. Takes some of the sting out of this thing. So when he throws, I'm here, I'm covered, and I bend at the knees. Again, here, here, here. Keeping the shoulder hunched up at the same time. Again, here, here. Bend at the knees. Here, here, here. Okay, we're going to trade a few now. Well, simple enough. Make sure though, if you do a few of these without bending the knees, you're going to feel it the next day. We're going to feel in the next 10 seconds anyway. Let's go ahead and look at we used our slips last time, inside and outside slipping. Same thing against a cross. When he throws this cross, slipping the outside. My preference is slip away from this tool. Again, I turn my body in the direction that I want to slip, and I bend at the knees, not the waist. He throws the cross. There's my outside slip. There it is. He throws the cross, I can slip inside again. Turn that direction, turn that direction, that direction. Just got to worry about this tool coming in. Throw again. Got to watch that hand. And again. All right, so let's turn. Let's go ahead and start a few of these. I'm going to throw a cross, slip outside, cross. Slip inside when I throw the cross. All right. We can also use a cross glove parry or a cross glove cuff like we did against the jab. It throws this cross. My rear hand, which I've used previously as a catch against the jab, will come in, give me that small circular motion we've been talking about the entire time. Throws again. There it is. There it is. Way through. We'll trade a few. I'll throw. Damn. Just as we did before, talking about our arms being a low reference position, we've also got the ability, if I've just thrown again down low and he's throwing a cross over the top against me, I got to be able to stop this cross. So again, he's aiming for the jaw. I put the shoulder in front of it. Notice I got my rear hand pulled up for cover at the same time. Lots of times when doing this roll against a cross, you'll see commonly to take the lead hand and drop it across the midsection and keep this one plastered against the jaw and your lead shoulder against the your lead side of the jaw. This prevents whenever he's throwing against the cross, a natural follow-up is going to be a hook. If it's throwing as a high hook, I'm already covered up. If he's throwing against it's a body hook, my glove's already covering up the solar plexus. But right now we're just worried about covering against the cross, but I'm still going to this proper rolling position. So we throw this cross, there's the roll. There's the roll. The roll. Again. Again. There. Turn it. Again. Again. Let's turn it back. Let's trade some. Throw, roll. Okay. Now we pulled against the jab, we can pull against the cross as well. Whenever he throws the cross, I'm going to rock my weight from 50 percent to 70% in the back leg, and I'll be able to snap myself back in. Remember, I don't stay out of range. I got to get right back into my 50-50 base. There's the cross. There's the pull. 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 Okay, we'll trade a few. See the immediate return to base after each pull. Throwing. Okay, one last defense for the cross. We did the step back before, we'll do the step back again. Same thing when he throws the cross, my lead foot allows me to shove my weight back while I step in direct. So the lead foot pushes, I step with the rear foot, always stepping with that direction, pull me back. Lead foot gives me a little bit of power, here's your step back. So he throws the cross, step back, cross, step back, cross, step back. Okay, a few traded, I'll throw. There you go, 8 more defenses, this time those against the cross. Mix and match them now with your jab cross drills all the way. We could do this all day and make a tape, 4 hours long trying to show you all the different permutations, but let's give you the basic building blocks, let your creativity take them and put them together. We're going to defend against the lead hook now. Remember we talked about the rear hook. You can work these on the opposite side of the body if you think you've got people who are throwing the rear hook against you. But if you already worked some good solid technique, by the time he throws off that rear hook, go ahead. I'm in his face the entire way. Lead hook's a hard punch to read lots of times, so you got to make sure we have a good defense against it. First basic defense you're going to need is just nothing more than a cover. Now we covered against the straight cross whenever this came in. Remember I took the glove over the ear, elbow to the inside, and dipped the knees. Same thing applies on the hook. One last thing, I will dip at the knees and move slightly to the inside of the body, take a little bit of sting off this punch, and you're shortening the arc on this punch. So when he throws that hook, again, covering up the ear, elbow to the inside. Some of you might be wondering, case, why the elbow's to the inside. If I throw this combination here, take the elbow to the outside. If I'm throwing hook combination directly to an uppercut, he's already giving me that line open. Where if he's got his elbow already on the inside, he's already giving me the elbow point right on top of the fist. So when he throws the hook, cover, elbow across the ear, hand across the ear, elbow to the inside. I dip the knees. Again, my knees are the shock absorbers. If I stay straight up on these things, I've stopped the punch from hitting my head, but I'm still going to be rocked by this thing. So I got to dip the knees and bend slightly to the inside. By the way, it's a great place to put in your free head butt we talked about earlier. So when he throws, it'd be here, and running the head directly through the face. Won't do that now, we're just doing our cover. So when he throws, there's the shot. Shot. See, I'm bending and going to him. Let's turn this. Also notice at no time when we're doing any of these do we leave our basic position. Our hands are up the entire way. So when I'm defending against the hook, you don't get into this pull back position at all. We're right here the entire time. We'll trade some hooks. I have the covers on them. I'll throw first. Easy enough. Don't want to do too many of those because that gets old really fast. Now we can take this same cover we had and make the little dip at the knees a little bit more extreme, and we come out with a duck coming up underneath the punch. So when he throws the hook, give me an exaggerated hook, something here that we just sweeps across. So I'm still going to have my cover hands in position, elbow to the inside, glove on the ear, bending at the knees, but this time I'm going more extreme in my dip. And whenever I dip in, I'm going to describe the letter V. I'm going down one angle of the V here. When I come up, I'm coming up the other angle of the letter V, coming up the inside of the body. So when he swings, dip, dip. Again, V, V. Of course, my hands will be up. Just look at where the legs are. Here and here. If I come up on the outside of the arm, great and good. If he's throwing with proper form, though, he's going to bring it back in. I'll probably more than likely come back into the chest area. So when he throws the hook, okay, he's got his hook coming in. Go ahead, dipping under the fist. Lots of times you're going to come up, you're going to feel yourself ramming into his forearm. You're just trying to close the gap, get on the inside. Throw the hook. There's the duck. I'm in this side, in the inside. He's eating the free headbutt. We got the takedown, the clinch. I'm ready for my inside fighting with the uppercuts again. So throw. There's the duck. There's the duck. There's the duck. Traveling on the V. Let's trade a few right here. Lead hook. I'm throwing. There it is. There you go. Now, the next defense we're going to use against the hook is a cross-glove parry again. Whenever he throws this hook, if I feel like I can there's a little bit of a pull involved with this. If I slightly pull my body back, we've already talked about these pulls, I'll put my lead glove in front of it as if this is a focus mitt. I'm actually slapping into his glove. So he's actually providing him with the target. So he comes in. Now some people say, why don't you just pull and let the punch travel past? No problem with that. We find by stopping this momentum up, it does not allow him to fire off this rear hand nearly as well. If I let him finish up that trajectory, he's already loaded off on that back shoulder. So here, he's got to get reset, and I have the time to put in my show jab, which is going to cover up my rear hand. So when he throws the lead hook again, a little bit of a pull, and notice I'm not coming out here. I'm just coming out about 6 to 8 inches in front of the face, slapping the glove. He throws, little pull. Let's turn it. Sure you can hear the impacts. Again, you're showing I'm really trying to stop this punch up. We'll trade a few. I'll hook first. Let it up. Hold on. Get towards the head. Into a drill right now. You're hitting in front of me. Towards the head. Okay. Okay. That's how you do the cross glove block. Last thing we can do against this hook, we've done a step back against a jab and a cross. Let's not ignore it because it works perfectly well here. When he throws this jab again, pushing out the lead foot, stepping with the rear foot, and dragging back. So when he throws the hook, bam, there's the footwork, hook, footwork, again, footwork, hands up, footwork, footwork, footwork with the step back. Okay, we'll trade a few. I'll throw first. Okay, there you go. Good defenses against the lead hook. Now you get your jab, your cross, and your lead hook defenses.